Oh, then it's that one.
Okay.
So it's right. You
I
were
can
wrong.
speak as loud as I want. Is this the loudest one?
I'm gonna have this one, not this one.
She's the loudest, actually.
No, I tone it down when I'm on the
Oh,
microphone.
you tone it
Yes.
down.
Hi everybody, my name's Brandy.
So I should also not speak too loud. You might have to press this button here on the side somewhere. There's a button.
Charging.
Yeah, okay. But if it's not charging, you press that button.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Who's the Saudi designer
There's
of
a whole
Rose?
list of people.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know all those names by heart. Someone stole my schedule.
Your what?
So.
Hello. Is this one? Hello. Hello. Huh? Bye, y'all.
8, 9. Thank you.
This makes me nervous.
Don't think too much.
No, because I don't want to pull the wires.
Who's that? No. No. Was it?
Put your stuff up, or you already did it? Miguel did some. Okay, yeah. I told them where to put it. I told them where to put it. I said, get her stuff. Okay. This doesn't look beautiful. That's mine. Don't lose it. Oh, next to their bug spray. We're good.
Hello.
Ready?
I am.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brandy. I work with Adlal. We are having a little master class called Creative Collaboration and Brainstorming with Mr. Jeroen Fremu. Jeroen specializes in scaling and optimizing creative operations. He helps teams and individuals to embrace the potential of creativity and design thinking. He is part of NEAR, a bridge building initiative between the Netherlands and the Arab world in the field of design. I will let him take over and introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Brandy. Welcome all of you. Welcome all here in the corner of the Atlal experience. And I would really like to give you a small inspirational journey in what it is about creative brainstorming, creative collaboration. And hopefully we can do it in a very interactive way with the people that are sitting here around the table. And first of all, I would like to briefly introduce a little bit about my background, like Brandy already said. My name is Jeroen Fremo. That's the Dutch expression, but you did it almost correct. Thank you for that.
I tried.
And after I started my corporate life in Philips Design, where I really learned to embrace design thinking in, let's say, in the business environment, I started as a consultant and a recruiter. And one of my clients at that moment was 3M, that I also helped for almost 4 to 5 years, really establishing their design teams and creativity in their organization. To make a jump to today, let's keep it as simple as possible. Today I feel very privileged to also work with Adlal on really scaling this community over here in the kingdom and to really drive it forward. But I'm also a mural playmaker, as they say it, and we try as experts in remote collaboration and virtual collaboration to really inspire organizations and to thrive visual thinking as a skill for innovation. So that's one of the things that I'm doing as well next to my consultancy activities. So it's all about collaborative creativity. It's about teamwork. It is about working together on an objective. And I would like to do that today with all of you here around the table and not focus too much on theory and telling stories about that. I really would like to go with you to a part of the conversation. What is collaborative creativity all about? So I'm actually curious to hear from the people here around the table. What is creative collaboration for you? What does that mean? Is there anybody that would like to say something? Can we have the microphone? What's creative collaboration for you?
Okay, I think creative people collaborate to do something more creative. So one brain, like it's not like 2 and 3 and 4.
So it's about amplifying each other.
Yeah.
It's helping each other to thrive forward. Okay, interesting one. And was it for you, Mr. Amar?
Yes, is to find I'm creative in one sector, let's say, and another creative person in another sector, and mixing those two sectors together will amplify definitely the creative process.
Okay, so it's the amplification of creativity among others. You have an idea? What's for you creative collaboration?
Yeah, I can elaborate on Mr. Ammar's point of view, different industries and different cultures. If you have that beautiful interaction, then you will come up with something that is beautiful and functional and creative.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of diversity.
So it's about diversity, it's about inclusion and fusing all sides of the
Addressing
cultural
multiple
spectrum.
points of view.
Okay,
Yeah.
really nice. So it's nice to hear. It's collaboration in industry, it's amplifying ideas and making them better, and it's about enriching, let's say, the different dimensions as well. But now I'm going to ask you a real question, is what makes good collaboration? So if you think about this type of collaboration that we just discussed, when is that really impactful? When is it successful? Can you just think about that?
Yeah, I think mutual respect to start with, because you have to understand the other point of view and then never push so much and understand how far that this will fit as a jigsaw puzzle.
Okay, okay, that's an interesting one. What makes good collaboration for you?
For me, the variety. Since we have variety with the people, they are cooperate together, we can get more different idea, different add value from different part. If we are from the same level or same area, we cannot go further.
Okay. And you, what makes good collaboration for you?
For me, there's no difference between good collaboration and good design. It's when it solves a problem, whether it's multiple people coming together to solve an individual problem or it's one designer. If the problem is solved, then it's a good collaboration.
So for you, it's about driving an end result, getting something out of it. What is good teamwork for you, or good collaboration for you?
I come from a background of communication, so in terms of communication, over almost the last 20 years, I've been working with creative agency, and so creative collaboration is about bringing home the vision of the brand and actually realizing that vision in a creative way, and it could be from a design perspective that's visual or other types, you know. And so in that sense, I think the number one element is the empathy that Mr. Ammar mentioned, empathy towards each other, being able to have an open mind and accept each other's opinions, and that's how creativity is born, a collaboration of minds, basically.
Really interesting, really interesting. But of course, there's always the other side of teamwork, of collaboration. That's where we fail. That's where we are not able to deliver the results that we just talked about. And I'm really curious to hear from all of you here around the table, what are the real struggles that you experience in effective collaboration or even in creative collaboration? What are the hurdles you have to take? Where do you fail? Where do you find anxiety in the ways of working? What is it that hampers good collaboration? No, now it's really your turn.
I saw you looking at me. I think it happens when, so if we're talking about two corporate organizations are trying to collaborate, or two individuals, usually the struggle is that they don't know how or where they complement each other. So I think the moment they know so what do you have, what you don't have, what you're missing, what you are not missing, and then we find out where the gap is, and then we try. But usually we replicate what others are doing or what the other party is doing, and then here probably, to me, usually is the struggle.
So it's also about understanding or misunderstanding each other?
Yes.
Okay. You shake your head, you recognize it, but do you have other reasons why you see collaboration fail?
I think misunderstanding is a big one, as you just highlighted, and expectations. When the expectations are not clear, then you have negativity.
Yeah.
And having positive collaboration makes things work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you could have the latest and greatest science and technology and art and whatever. However, if the, what's it called, the human aspects, the soft skills are missing, then there is a good chance of,
So it's
I don't know, failure in collaboration.
So I hear you say empathy. Let's say it lacks empathy or lacks understanding in the collaboration. That makes it fail. And respect, lacking of respect. That's an interesting one.
So I agree, lack of clear communication is for sure, which is misunderstanding. That's a big one. The other thing, lack of ownership, for me, is a huge thing in collaborations. When you don't know what is yours to own, people are confused. It's really something that's detrimental, and it causes a lot of misunderstanding, causes a lot of problems, causes a lot of things like that.
Very nice, very nice.
From my side, I can, from experience, speaking about, I can say it in my way, okay, investment, budgeting. Sometimes one of the things when in they are ability to work together, but there are no any kind of investment or the promising for investment, so that we cannot move forward.
Interesting.
So the struggles are filling up quite fast, so that I think we all have a problem with positive collaboration.
That's true. That's true. There were some words to be said here as well.
The difference between a dreamer and an actualizer, and of course the level of expectations. The dreamers always have got extremely high expectations, which gets very frustrating if they don't meet. That's how it is. But of course, realistic approach with understanding of everything that's surrounding, and this will definitely not make the difference between the dreamer and
the perfectionist.
And the perfection. It's interesting because the type of symptoms that you hear about ineffective collaboration or failing collaboration is a little bit like in normal teamwork as well. There needs to be trust. And if there's no trust, it's hard to collaborate or to effectively work as a team. It's about having transparency. So do we know what we're working on, what's expected from each other? And that also in a workshop or in a creative action to do problem solving, if you don't know with what role you're sitting at the table, are you the financing department or are you the design department? Let's say if you don't understand from each other what the perspective is, it makes it hard. And what I always call is leadership, but I think here it was called ownership. It's that taking ownership, accountability for action. So it's okay to dream, but at a certain moment we need to move on and we have to deliver a solution. If I now would ask you to say what you see here on the screen is really a key factor that we would like to solve. It might not be too hard, but maybe there's a topic here that we say, let's focus our brainstorm on that specific problem. Is there something that you say, hey, I really struggle with one of these elements and that we can work on tonight?
Maybe don't believe in abundance of ideas. They keep the ideas for themselves.
Not believing in
Abundance.
ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a form of transparency? Not having transparency, is that what you mean, or?
yes,
Create another, an extra.
Okay, so that one ID should have the opportunity to amplify the next ID, and that cannot happen therefore. Okay. Not believing in divergent thinking, Stephanie writes down here on the screen. Is that what we mean here? So not allowing to widen your ideas, to broaden perspective, and limiting in that. I think that's an interesting one also, because in the design world and in design thinking, it is about that diverging perspective, and then going again and focus on the real problem towards it. We have been experiencing that the last couple of days in many sessions, not only here, but also in the outside world. So let's take that idea of, let's say, the absence of divergent thinking, and I would like to go to the problem framing. So I would like to formulate that in a way that we can move forward. So maybe we can say something like, how might we stimulate divergent thinking in a team? Let's not make it more complex than that. So how do we stimulate diverse thinking or divergent thinking in a team? And now the real brainstorm starts, because we want to have a solution. And I think we're going to think ourselves first about what could be a possible solution. So I'm going to give you all a so-called post-it. Let's put that here. And I want you to write down one idea to start with, how we could actually overcome this problem, or how can we stimulate divergent thinking. So write down one idea. Are you participating as well? Yes. That's great. Welcome. So I would like you all to take 1 minute. Don't make it too complex, but think about a possible solution. How could we actually stimulate divergent thinking? And think out of the box. Don't limit yourself. One idea. How could you actually stimulate free thinking, stimulate diverse ideas, opportunities. And if you want to sketch, that's also possible. You don't have to write down an idea. If you want to create a nice icon or you want to sketch a reality, an idea can be described in many ways and not
Harun,
only in
maybe
words.
you can give them the definition of divergent thinking.
I think what we mean with divergent thinking is that we're trying to be as open as possible in the ideas that we generate. Also, if you are in a creative flow, you don't want to go focus immediately on one idea or on one solution. You start sketching a little bit in that direction, and then in that direction, and then in another direction, and then you want to bring that together. So if you see it more in the creative arts, I think the artists of today, they never start on one piece and finish that as a single piece. They start and they try out different options. I can even imagine that in fashion design or even in jewelry design, that you trying to work in different options before you make the final decision. I think I'm going to detail this out. So how do we stimulate in a team the creation of options in that creative process? I see that a few people have written down something. And it's just a first thought. So just write down your first thought. Don't think too much about it. How could we stimulate that? I see a sketch here even. That's good. I see words here. So let's start here with the first one. And maybe Stephanie can write down some of the ideas. They're all at the bottom of the board, Stephanie, if you go to the bottom part. If you zoom out, then there's a nice area. You can go down. Even lower, yeah. See, we're working here with a digital board, and on the left side, there we have an option to actually download our IDs. So let's start here. What is your idea about how to solve this problem? Maybe in a short sentence.
Sure. Well, first you need to create an atmosphere of open discussion, obviously, where everyone feels comfortable to share their ideas in an open way, without any parameters or barriers to their open thinking. Sometimes, in my experience, it's good to have a short venting session where everyone shares anything that's bothering them within the team, everyone shares anything that's limiting their thinking in any way before the open discussion starts. And I also find that with an open discussion or brainstorming, it's good to have a neutral mediator that keeps things organized and makes sure that results are documented, and then you're able to see an actual result in the end after all that.
So 3 ideas, really great. I think that's a good start to that. What's your idea?
I also thought about the same things. I think all of us sometimes really need having this space to create diversion and not being worried or that a new idea or innovative idea will be criticized. You know, sometimes the fear of criticism kills creativity. So once we have that safe space for us to dream, to innovate, then this will prosper.
Really nice. So creating a safe space, let's say your team environment needs to be safe.
Yeah.
What is your idea?
It's much the same. Regular brainstorming sessions, things where people are opening up and talking and having the ability to kind of come up with solutions as a team as opposed to individuals, like one person at a time. And the other one, group strategy sessions. I feel like when you have an organization or a team, if they feel like they can participate in the actual strategy of where it's part of that ownership thing.
So be at the start, create ownership from the beginning.
Right from the beginning, so that their ideas are actually kind of things that are considered and possibly implemented within the actual strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps.
Nice, nice. What is your idea for diverse thinking?
I support what he said before, about and here also about make space for. But from my side also, I like to usually give a frame for the designers and the ideas. We should not cross that frames. That would save the time sometime, because sometimes we are not in that have the leverage of the time to find the designs for some of the ideas.
So you talk about creating a good framework where you actually set the boundaries for the thinking process, for the creative process as well. It's an interesting perspective. What about you?
Do some activities together. and have a sense of humor.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's really about building team spirit.
Yeah, I
And
think so.
that's an interesting one. So start building trust among each other. Amma.
It's going to be a bit of a diagram. You can love this. You have to put everybody on a ship and give them a task and a track. So that has to go back and forth in terms of dialogue. And then this will give them flexibility. At the same time, they have to be solid with what they are presenting. Testing, that they have to do the testing and bring it over back in track. And the designation, who's and what doing what. So it's all more like being in one ship and everyone is responsible to do the successful job.
Okay. So being on the same journey, having the same goal, but everybody takes his own responsibility.
Yes. The most important thing is to create a task and a track.
Okay.
The track is to take back and forth information, and the task is to make sure that whoever's doing the task has to do it towards the end.
Okay. Thank you. What's your idea about stimulating creativity and diverse thinking?
Okay, I think we shouldn't keep any idea in our minds. We should share everything, even if it's a silly idea, because a silly idea might take us somewhere. And we should set a rule: no rejections for any idea.
Really good, really good.
So I've heard everybody say that you should have a lot of brainstorming sessions and collaborations with your team. How often do you guys think they should do it? Is this something you should do once a week, once a month, every other day?
Sorry?
We do every other day.
Was there an answer to the frequency?
I said, which one do you think should happen in an organization? Every other day, once a week, once a month, every other week? It's important to keep a steady flow. What's the sweet spot?
That's definitely true. And if you think on an organizational level, that is an approach. Bring frequency into that. You can also think about an individual problem. How do you stimulate creativity and diverse thinking to solve one single problem? Just like we're trying to do here at the table. I'm going to make a next round because you've now seen the first ideas here on screen. Those are your ideas. But now I want you to really think about a silly idea. There was a nice recommendation made here. Allow silly ideas. So now I want you to think about one silly idea to stimulate creative thinking and diverse thinking on ideas. So take another minute, and I would like to hear a really silly idea. I know, this one is not.
You want to take this off?
So what is that one silly idea that you would like to implement in your next project? How are we going to stimulate? I see a lot of people staring here at the table. It's like this is the most difficult question you're going to answer today. Well, a silly idea could be is that you don't sit in the office and you do your brainstorms, but you go outside to the park.
Something fun, not silly.
Have some fun. Or you find another environment where you have your brainstorming sessions. Okay. Amar, you wanted to say something?
Yes, scream, jump, and shout.
Exactly.
Scream and jump and shout.
Exactly. So do some body exercises while you are brainstorming. I think that's a good one. We got a second silly idea by you.
When you have an idea, you should sit on the table and say it out loud.
Exactly. Do fun things. Do the awkward things, the unexpected. What was your silly idea?
There is no ideas in my mind, no.
No silly idea on your mind? Yeah. Maybe you should start jumping and come up with a silly idea.
I was thinking about hire a clown in our aircraft instead of the airline.
Exactly.
This is getting expensive.
Princess Noura, what is your silly idea?
This is going to get expensive. It's a work trip, like a work holiday, like for a day trip or something where everybody goes out and just whatever. And then the other thing is like play a game in the office, like a treasure hunt.
Oh, treasure hunt in the office. Finding the problem. Did you have a silly idea?
I I join Princess Noura's point of view about traveling. Routine kills me,
okay.
kills me. So if you give me an innovative workplace, maybe work in different countries, different cities around the year, you will delight my heart.
Okay, so you want to be on her next project team. I can understand that. Did you have a crazy idea?
Not so crazy, but back in the day when I was in school, I remember in an art class, they had us draw something with our eyes closed, using the left side of your brain, which you don't use unless you're asleep, usually. So a cool idea would be to take the team outdoors, nature, and have everybody do that exercise with a specific problem in mind, which you're sketching. And then everybody explain the sketch after they've opened their eyes.
It makes me think of a restaurant concept in Amsterdam that was there a couple of years ago, a pop-up restaurant, which was the dark side. So you was eating your food in a total dark place. And it was to create different types of conversations because the senses are triggered in a different way if you have the absence of sight at that moment. So that was an interesting one. Okay, it's here roughly now 12 IDs, almost 16 IDs on it, and I would like to take the first row of each, and I just want to showcase how you can prioritize your IDs. So imagine that we would like to do a next team brainstorm, and we want to create thinking. Then we want to start focusing on the right side of over here. So maybe you can take a few of the post-its with IDs, Stephanie, to the right side, and let's not go to the categories. Let's take the crazy IDs. I like those actually. Let's take those 4, or yeah, let's take the top 4, and let's move them to the right. There's a matrix over there, and I would like you to help me out mapping those IDs on what we call an impact versus effort matrix. And in brainstorm sessions, if you're working with your team and you have 25 IDs, of course it's about which ID do we think is relevant to give follow-up. And that's depending on, do we have the time for it? Do we have the budget for it? Do we have the creativity for it in our team? Do we have the skill sets? There can be many reasons that influence how realistic is it that we can actually do this. And that's the effort axis. So if you think in effort, it's about how much effort should we do or do we need to do to implement such an idea. And we have on the vertical axis the impact axis dimension. And that is about, suppose we are implementing this idea, is it really contributing to solving our problem? To create diverse thinking. Remember, how can we stimulate diverse thinking and ideation? That was our question. So I would like you to help me out here. So if you think about say it out loud, let's take that idea, we say, how easy is it or how difficult is it to have a team of creatives together with maybe marketers and finance people all together in a room, have them all speak out loud? Is that really difficult?
It's either very fun or a nightmare.
Is it difficult? I can imagine in some environments it can be really difficult, culturally very difficult, where maybe in another environment it's an obvious thing. But how would you say here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, how difficult is it to have people speak out loud in a creative brainstorm? Not so easy? Is it impolite? Okay. I'm Dutch, so we say everything. We have no shame to come with silly ideas or creative. So you say it is quite difficult, or there's effort needed, which is maybe to take that cultural barrier, to step over that and to stimulate that. So let's start somewhere. But suppose that the team is able to do this. Is this then real? Suppose you can create that trusted environment where people can speak out loud. Would you then really have thriving ideas? Would that really happen? Is that really helping to create diverse thinking? What do you guys think? Yeah, you think so? So let's put it like that, just for an idea at the moment. Now let's get the clown in air. So Saudi Airlines is putting a clown in an aircraft, and that's where we're going to have our next brainstorm session, with the clown as the main facilitator, I understand that. So how easy is it to hire or to charter a plane from Saudi Airlines to have someone act as a clown and facilitate a creative workshop? Is that easy or is that difficult?
I'd say it's difficult.
Is it difficult? Why is it difficult?
I mean, mean, the logistics of it.
Oh, the
The
logistics.
logistics of it, I
The
would
price,
imagine,
the
is
cost
difficult.
involved.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we've tried to do some, some out-of-the-box ambient activations, sometimes on planes through Saudi Airlines, and there's a certain level of logistics you have to go through. Sometimes things are not possible. Sometimes they're open for discussion, and sometimes they're simply out of the question. So it really depends on the idea, I guess. Yeah, I think the logistics of it is the main challenge.
Okay, thank you for giving up. And is it more, does it require more effort, you guys think, than saying it out loud, or less effort?
Have you ever thought about using your flight attendants if they're interested to?
We already was thinking about that in 2016. We was thinking at that time we was contact with Bunch Adams, I think, okay, the doctor, the one who was doing that clown thing for the children.
Yeah.
And we was thinking about to make that live, okay, by in summer we can hire clowns, okay, which from our flight attendant, okay, to do that, change his clothes on board and doing that like it makes nanny and clown activity in that time, but actually it was expensive project.
Okay, well,
Birthdays on the plane. That was in the past.
organizing birthdays on the plane.
The crew would celebrate.
Yeah. But do we think that it creates more impact than saying it out loud? Suppose in your organization you can create a culture of saying out loud, so you are over that cultural barrier. Do you think that that will stimulate creativity and diverse thinking more than chartering a plane with a clown? So which one is the most impactful, so to say, of these two? Anybody?
I believe it depends on the destination, really. Let's say if people are going on a funeral on the same airplane, that will be a disaster to have a clown.
Okay.
But if you're going to more destination,
Summer, if you're flying in summer, the numbers of the children is high. The number of children usually is high in the summer flights, and some destinations, okay, which is family destinations, okay, you can really find it fit.
Yeah.
But, of course, in, let's say, Jeddah Riyadh flight, okay, normal days, okay, is not the flying time is not sufficient, and also that the quality of the passenger is not fit with some idea like this.
I see we're getting really creative here because we're thinking about all kind of ideas, but the question is how is it impacting creativity in the organization? Not can we realize a chartered airplane with a clown for children. So it is the marketing team of Saudi Airlines, will they become more creative if they have their workshops and their brainstorm sessions in air with a clown? Or if they would actually invest in the culture of open communication where they can say everything. I think this is the type of conversation. Let's take the last one, and I would like to take scream, jump, and shout. Stephanie? So if we think about how easy is it to actually implement this as a strategy?
personally, I do it sometime when I am having a presentation of a project.
That's true, he
One
does.
client.
That's a good one. That's a good one. How easy is it for you to start screaming and shouting?
It depends on the people attending with me
Okay.
and the culture around the organization.
Okay.
In some cultures, it is acceptable. It's part of being enthusiastic about what you're doing,
yeah.
right? But in some cultures, you have to be careful about it.
Okay, but it could be as simple as asking people to bring their running shoes to a workshop and run 2 rounds in the meeting room before you start ideate, for instance, doing a physical exercise. So let's just assume it's not so hard to get people running and jumping in the room. And how easy, or how would that actually stimulate creativity? Do you think it can really unlock the creative flows in the team?
I think if you have a nice idea, you should scream. Whoever in the room, he should hear you screaming, and it might like hype the room.
Exactly.
Also, I'd like to add, it will definitely add attention. So this is where we're starting. So everybody start to think.
energy. It gets energy going. So let's assume in this example here of this mini masterclass of creative brain that actually it's not so hard to do it, and actually it creates direct impact in the team. So what you see now here also on the matrix and on the screen is that the ideas in the right upper corner require more effort to organize. You probably need other people to create those conditions. You probably have to convince your management team that the workshop that normally doesn't cost anything because other than coffee and maybe other things, now all at once you need an airplane and a clown.
I wanted to add something. The screaming, jumping, and shouting bit could be very effective depending on the setting. So obviously that might be a little difficult if you're on a flight, for example.
I've seen people jump on a plane actually as well. So I think.
But in a like an open environment where someone has a strong idea and they want to share it with someone, that could be a very effective tool.
Yeah, totally agree. So what we see here on the screen is that the ideas that here in the right upper corner actually emerge really need preparation. And you have to make a project out of it. So it's really a longer term investment that you're making. And here in the left upper corner are those ideas that you can start tomorrow, which we sometimes also call the low-hanging fruits that you can start. So it's not too difficult to start with those. So if you have multiple ideas, and if you can visualize them, you can actually prioritize. And you can make a decision as a team how to do and how to move forward in the next step. So I think this also relates a little bit to the recommendations that I have. So if we go back and try to summarize what we've tried to learn today, and maybe also, Stephanie, you can help me a little bit. Next, go to the upper corner where you see creative collaboration and brainstorming. In principle, brainstorming is providing a free and an open environment where you can think out loud. I think some people said it here in different ways also already. I think that's important to understand, that thinking out loud and encouraging the team to participate is really important. If you create restrictions, you will not progress. And it is about prioritizing volume over value in a brainstorm. I'm not saying that in business decisions it's always volume over value, but if you want to stimulate creativity, it's as many ideas as possible. So try to create conditions for free thinking, silly ideas. I think that's the elements that we have. And to maybe summarize around, let's say, the elements of what is brainstorming all about, I'll try to bring you all over there and follow me. There's some tips that actually talk about creative brainstorming. If you look on my screen over here, it is trying to defer judgment. If you want to have an idea, is an idea. It's a good idea, it's a bad idea, it's at that moment not important. What's also is go for volume, like I already said. As many as possible. You can filter out later, and you can prioritize later. You want to stimulate idea after idea. I think it was your first recommendation that you said one idea can stimulate the next idea. And that's why we do 2 rounds of brainstorm here as well, because it stimulates you there. The next one is build on the ideas of each other. So it's not only on volume, it's also content-wise. You can take the idea of a colleague or another creative and say, let's add something to that. Let's make it richer. Let's make it more sillier. It's all possible as well. But also try to stay on topic. We saw it here happening a little bit at the table as well. Our ideas started to drift off to in-flight entertainment with air hostesses, which might be a great idea, but it did not relate to the conversation we had over here. So a good facilitator, like I try to be, sometimes is even struggling keeping the conversation on topic. And let's say besides wild ideas, being visual helps as well. Don't only write down things, don't only speak out loud, but put it on a board like this, start sketching, move things around, put them on a map so that you see how things relate to each other. I think these are all elements that help you over there.
I've worked with Yorum for quite a while, and he's very good at these interactive experiences. And for him, he's had a mixture of all kinds of cultures, and he's really had to rope us in. But this is a perfect example of a collaborative brainstorming session. It's a workshop, and he's made it into a collaborative brainstorm session, and you all were very interested. So he's very good at this.
Okay, thank you for that. So I would like to conclude over here. I hope you and a little bit of a feeling and a little bit of a gist, let's say, what creative brainstorming can be and creative collaboration. So we talked about trust, we talked about transparency, we talked about leadership and ownership on the idea, but we also explored areas how to stimulate creativity so that we can actually move forward. Is there anybody that has a question?
I'd like to hear from you.
What would you like to hear?
The same answers, the same question. I mean, the same questions for the. And I want to know your answers for this.
That's a very interesting
You've heard
one.
from us. We never heard from you.
That's a very interesting one. But one of the rules of facilitation is that the facilitator never engages in the content. We're here to facilitate a process, a team process. And I would love to have that conversation outside this workshop. But it's a good facilitator rule that you don't interfere in the process because you might start showing bias and influence the ID directions. So let's take this offline, Mr. Ammar, and then we'll talk about how I think about these type of things. That's it. Any other questions, maybe, to conclude it?
So that makes you the neutral mediator.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Brandy, for helping out today. Thank you,
Thank
Stephanie,
you all
also
so
for doing.
much.
Thank you very much.